Hey guys, and welcome back to the FLEA Circus. Our video today is entitled Rainbows in Our Rain. For what seemed like forever, one of the longest journeys ever made by a seafaring vessel had finally come to an end. For some 370 days, just a day short of 53 weeks, 8 desperate souls had endured a very literal journey into the unknown. The journey from one world to another. Finally, the God who had overseen their journey commanded them to come out of their vessel. The man, of course, was Noah. And as he, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives walked down the gangplank to actual firm ground, they took occupancy of planet Earth as the only living beings left alive after a flood of judgment unleashed by God had destroyed, as he had said before this all started, everything that has the breath of life in it. All people, all animals, all birds, everything had been destroyed. Now as they walked off the ark and got their walking legs back, I'm sure that one of the many questions buzzing around their heads was, is this going to happen again? Could God make this happen again? What if people make him angry again? What happens then? God knew what they were thinking, so after they had gotten off the ark, he communicated with them. And in the midst of all he had to say, he made them a promise, what he called a covenant. He said, I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And then, just to let them know that he most sincerely meant it, that he would keep the promise he had made to them, he gave them a guarantee by means of a very special sign. This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth. This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all life on the earth. God has kept his word. Through all the centuries that have passed since that day with Noah's family, God has kept his word. And while science can explain what is actually happening with light and water droplets to create a rainbow, the fact is that it was God who actually gave light and water those properties that allow a rainbow to even occur. And think about what that means regarding the promise of God that a rainbow represents. God wants us to see his promise, and he wants us to know that he sees his promise as well. He wants us to know that he takes all his promises that seriously. What a great reality that can be for all of us. In so many areas of life, we are faced with needing to determine what is true and what is not. In politics, social concerns, media reports, and so many other things, we acknowledge by our lack of faith in the things we hear or are told that quite literally and quite obviously, promises don't mean a lot these days. But this lack of ability to keep promises hits pretty close to home, too. Approximately 50% of American marriages end in divorce, which means that for 1 out of every 2 marriages, the couple couldn't even keep one promise to be faithful to each other until death do they part. But we can rejoice with God's faithfulness to his promises this day and every day. At the very end of his life, Joshua could look back and celebrate God's faithfulness as he declared to the nation of Israel, "You know with all your heart and soul that not one of all the good promises the Lord your God gave you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled. Not one has failed. Even a false prophet like Balaam saw the truth and faithfulness of God in every word he spoke, telling the king of the Moabites, God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? God wants us to know that he is always faithful, that his word is always trustworthy. As he himself said in the Psalms, I will not violate my covenant or alter what my lips have uttered. Wow. Isn't that incredible? That the God of the entire universe wants us, beings that he created for his purposes, to know that we can rely on him. We can trust him. We can believe him. We can literally place our life in his hands in any and every circumstance because he will never break his promises. That's why the author of the New Testament book of Hebrews could write with such obvious joy, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. God is faithful. Trust him, rest in him, and love him for every word he has ever spoken. They are all true. Praise his name. And don't let life's raindrops bother you. That's when God's rainbows shine the brightest. I love you guys. You have a great week. God bless.